take a look quickly into it, and then we will try to visualize it so it's going to be easier. So we will create, so this is the class that is going to contain a main. So this is what its compiler is going to see. So this class has the main method. Inside it, we create an object called C1 from which type? From type circle. And then we pass one as a radius. A circle, we already discussed this class on the previous meeting. اللي يذكروا تكلمنا عن نحن أنشأنا class اسمه circle before. I believe I'm gonna to okay. I tried to make it easy for you guys, so I tried to represent it in this way. So you can imagine that this here, the first test pass object is the one you call it. That's the one has the main methods. This is what the compiler is going to see. The test pass object is like any classes. It could have a data here, and then it's going to have the other part, which is the methods, which is the main is one of the special type of methods. And then inside it is going to have another method. It's called print area. The print area methods here is not related to the circle class. It's related to test pass object class. Okay. So what are we going to do? Let me try to do it with you guys one by one. Okay. Let's read it line by line. So we say circle. So from type circle, from this type, from this class type, create an object called C1, and we will call the constructor new circle, and we will pass a radius as a 1. So this is going to create a new object, which is you see it here, C1, and it's going to assign a radius as a 1. So this is the data area, what we have it. So inside the class, we have a radius, and then we have couples of methods. We saw this on the meeting 3, slide 7, for those who don't remember it. Now, after that, after we create an object from type circle, we're going to create a variable from type integer called n, and we will assign 5 to it. So far, so good? Third, we're going to call a method called print areas. We will pass an object from type circle, and we will pass 5 here. Okay? So what is going to do? This is going to invoke the method print area. The print area is inside the data pass object, is not inside a circle. That's why we didn't say C1 dot print the area, because it's not belong to the circle classes. It belongs to the test pass object. So it's in the same classes. We are talking about same classes. We are not going to invoke it from another class. Okay? So when we invoked calling the print area, this A, what is going to do? It is going to point to the same object as well. Let's see what does this print area do. So we are here, we are in this line, print area. So this is going to send a circle, an A, which is a C1, is going to enter to this area, to this method with the name A, and we pass N is going to enter here as a times. Inside it, we will print a radius area, so it's just to print 2 words. Then it's going to go with a while statement. While times is bigger than, so we having than here. So those variables is related to the print area method. So we having a time. How much is the time here? We pass it 5, so we have it as a 5. Is it 5 is bigger than 1? Yes. So we're gonna to print. We're gonna to go to the A, which is the same as C1, and it's gonna to call invoked a get radius from here. Get radius, so it's gonna to return 1 here at the beginning, and it's gonna to do some calculation and return and get the area, so you will get another number. What you will have later after that, we're gonna to set radius, which is here inside it, A dot set radius. It is going to be changed. How much? What are we going to send to it? Get the radius. How much is the radius? Is 1 plus 1, so it's going to be 2. So inside here we will get 2. So what is going to do is going to change the radius to 2, and it's changing the one on the object. It's not reflection of it. It's the same one. Then times minus 1. Which is mean here we will have 4. We will back to the while. Is 4 is less than 1? Yes, we will print the radius here is how much is 2 now. Then we will calculate the area. After calculating the area, we're gonna to change the radius again. How much we have in the radius is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So we will change it again, and it will be 3 now. We will change the time. Time minus. So now it's times 3. As 3 is bigger than 1? Yes. And so on and so forth until we finish all this loop. At the end, we will have, so when it's 3, the radius will be 4. And then when it is 4, the radius will be 5. And then when it's 5, oh, sorry, it's reduced. So we will have it 4, 3, and then 2, and then 1. At the end, when we have it 1 is bigger than or equal to 1, which is true, you will get it in here. Radius will be 6. After finishing this methods, we will back, after finishing the print area, we will back to the main methods. So the compiler finish line 1, line 2, line 3 will come here, print out radius as, it will go to the C1, which is exactly the same A that we already submitted into, to the methods, the print area methods. So here, how much do we have get radius? How much is the radius at the end? Is 6. Okay, so we will have a radius as 6. How much is it n? How much is it n here? What's the output of this line? So this is the radius. We already invoked C1 and back to the radius, and we see it is 6. What about n? N is 5. Thank you. Because we didn't change it. It's already n. It's already declared on the main, and we have it here. Good. Any question about this? Okay. So let's back to our main slides. So this was the example. I highly recommend you guys if you could just go to this slide. Most of the slides have this green and blue buttons, which is going to take you to the real life example. So if you click it, you will see the result at the end. So now I will talk about keywords called this. Those who was with me on the previous lab, we already used this keyword on the previous exercise. So this keyword usually used to refer to an object by itself. So if there is any hidden data field, or you need to make sure you are using the data that's in this class, not the data on the main methods, for example, especially if it has the same name, you can use this inside the class, okay? Another common used تستخدم عادة also أنت ممكن تستخدمها إذا كان في data and you need to make sure you are using it from the class. Another use, if one constructor call another constructor, invoked another constructor. Okay, so we will see now. If you don't get it, that's fine. We will see it here. So for example, here, if you see, again, I'll back to okay, so in this example, you will see here that they're using private integer 5 and then private static k. Inside the method set I, we do this I. It's exactly like you are saying it's just I. But some people just using it to make sure you are using the right variable you are doing it. So this is about the first condition. هذا الاستخدام الأول لدس إذا كنا راح نستخدم الداتا اللي تكون موجودة privately داخل الكلاس. فإحنا عندنا كلاس الإف، الداتا موجودة هنا، عملنا لها inside another method which is inside the class, just this dot name of the variables. The second use, so this is the first use. The second use, which is this is more common used. Sorry, this is about using it for invoking to another constructor. So here you suppose you're having two objects from class F. So this is the first object, F1, and then F2, okay? Inside each of those, you will have I and you will have K, and then you will have the methods. In the first line here, when we create, construct, the first object, F1, and then second object, F2, we didn't initialize it. We didn't pass any variables into the method. ما أرسلنا أي قيمة إلى الكونستراكتور على أساس إن هي تعمل assign إلى الI أو ال5. لكن at the beginning, even if you didn't assign anything, by default, I is going to be 5, while K is going to be 0. It's just going to be assigned right away when you're creating a new object. It doesn't matter if you're assigning anything or not. Then here, F1 that set I, what we get gonna to pass, we're gonna to pass it 10. So 10 is gonna to go here, and then it's gonna to execute. This I is gonna to be 10. So I here is gonna to be 10. If this here is gonna to refer to F1. However, this here, then we invoked F2 is I, but now we will pass 45. So 45 is going to change the I that is associated with the F2, not the F1. So this is the use of it. So this is going to tell us that this is related to object F1 and this is related to object F2. Okay? So the second use of it is when you're having a constructor inside another constructor. One constructor is calling another. So we're having a class which is called circle. This one that we already saw it since last meeting. We're having a radius And then how many constructor we have? 1, 2. The first constructors have only one argument. The second one has non-argument, 0 arguments constructor. Okay, so this must be explicitly used to reference the data field radius of the object being constructed. This is you have to pass the radius here, and this is mean you get to call the radius that is defined on this class. However, here this dot is going to refer to using this data. You take a look to the second this. The this inside this constructor mean this going to call the constructor that has the same name but has one argument. So the 0 argument constructor gonna to call the 1 argument constructor and send 1 here. Okay. And then inside the method, you can, instead of just saying radius, you can just set this, that's a radius. This is exactly just like you're saying radius. Okay. This is explain the same concept again. So the word this can be used to invoke constructor, as we just said. It's referring to a class which is a beer. Consider an example here. So here you're having 1, 2, 3, and 4 constructors with the same names. What's the difference is the number of arguments. So let's assume in one case, you're creating a class, it's named 3 arguments, but not always it's required. Sometimes you given the user an option. If the user didn't enter the value, you get to use a 0 an example as a default. فمثلا لو انت طالب من المستخدم انه هو يدخل 3 قيم, and all those variables, it could be optional. So you can write all of them, you can write 2, you can write 1, you can write none of them. So if the user enters the 3 arguments, we will call this constructor. If the user enters 2 variables, we will call this constructor, and the third variable, which is C, is going to be 0. So we will call this is going to call this. Okay? So we will have an A, whatever it's passed is going to go here. B it's going to go as a B. 0 is going to go as a C. Let's assume a user just enter 1 argument. So what we're going to go, we'll call it this. It's going to call this. It's going to send an A. However, it's going to label B and C as a 0. In the third case, let's assume a user didn't get any arguments, so 0 arguments. He didn't enter any values. So this is mean that we're going to assign 0 to A and B and C. So this constructor will call this constructor with sending 0, 0, 0. So this is the other use of using this word. Okay. Now we will see something interesting actually. How you creating an array for an object. What do you mean about creating an array for an object? We saw an array for integers, string, characters, and so on. Some people just get some little confused when it's coming to combining two concepts together, but don't be. We will try to explain it soon. خلينا نشوف هذا السلايد and I'll show you examples that is going to make it clear for you. الايديا ان احنا كيف راح نعمل array المحتويات اللي حقها object. Instead of before we had an array that has integer inside it, char, string, references of string, we will now having references for objects. So here you're having type of object. So we will having an array of type circle. This is the name of the array, circle area. And then here we're going to create it with a size 10. So above statement create an array which can hold references to the 10 circle objects. Remember, it's references because we said the object is references, the string is references, the array is references. So this sentence is not going to create a circle object. This is going to create an array. It's not going to create an object by themselves. They have to be created separately using a constructor of, this is suppose of circle classes, not student classes. So it's supposed to be from circle class type. For example, if you try to write circle array 0.set_radius, this is going to run, or we're going to get an error. We're going to get an error. Let me show you how I can do this, how I can visualize it for you guys. Okay, so let's try to remember together. When we create an array for integer, we put int square brackets and then a name of the array. We put a new int and then you put a size. And this is going to be mean the array always is the references. We always remember this, okay? So we will have an array and then you can assign a number inside it. So here if you say array name, sorry, it's hard to write. Okay, array name and then you put 0 equal to 5. That means you're putting 5 here inside it. Good? So this is, for example, array of integer. This is, I just put a title related to the slide that I'm just referring to, but this is an array of integer, for example, here. The second example, it's array of double. It's array of double. So you creating, you put a type, you put a bracket, and then a name, new, again, the type of the array, and then a size. Same as the integer. Here, you need to just try to remember what we said about string. A string is a reference. So first, we're creating an array from type string. And it's going to be a reference. So this is the reference here. Then, a new string, whenever you assigning, for example, you say array name for square bracket 0, you put in name 1, you're creating a reference. اللي تحتاجوا تذكروا اللي يميز السترينج عن أو الارray of string. So this is not array of objects. الarray of string اللي يميزها انها راح تكون references. فلو قلنا ان الarray name الى المكان الاندكس 0 معناها ان احنا جالسين نتكلم ان هي references الى السترينج اللي نعمل له assign لها مش gonna to be stored inside it. Okay. هذه الفكرة هي نفسها اللي راح نستخدمها في الobject. So that we will use or the same idea is going to be for an array of objects. Okay. So you remember, we repeat this again and again, talking about this circle here, about this class, circle class. هذا الcircle class عملناه في الميتينج 3 ولسه نستخدمه في الإكزامبل حقنا. So if you having a class called a circle, you can create an array of object class like this. You put a name of the class circle, and then you put square brackets. You put a name of the array. So this is the name of the array, equal to new circle with whatever size you would like to create it. Good? Okay, so far we haven't created any object. We create the array of objects. But does it reference to any object? No. Have we created any object? No, we just have the array. So if I say circle array, the name of the array with index 0, I would like to put dot set radius with 10. Is this correct or wrong? Is this right or wrong? Can I say, we are here, okay? When I say circle array 0, that means here. Can I say dot set radius 10? So we're having one saying wrong and one saying right. What about the rest of you guys? Okay, it's good to hearing about your ideas. Okay, because we are dealing with an object, because the object references and we are using methods. Most of you said yes. I believe only one person said no. The one who said no, can you explain why this is wrong, Bushra? Bushra, can you tell me why this is wrong? Any idea? Okay, I'll tell you, just because of the time. It's wrong. Why? Because we haven't created any object. I just said it before coming to this slide. We create the array, but we haven't created the object yet. So this is wrong. What we need to do first, I'll show you. So what we need to do first, we need to create the object. You said circle array 0 equal to new circle. This is going to create an object, the object for circle array in the index 0. Before that, this area is empty, is not referring to any place. The area is just having, it's just an array, it doesn't creating any object. Okay, so we have to do first circle array for each of the places inside the array. We created equal to new circle to create one object. Then you can say circle array on index 0 dot set radius 10. This is right. Okay, good. So then you can create the other object and so on and so forth for the rest of each place on inside the array objects. Okay. Okay. So let's back to our slides. Is that clear? You see here, I already say it before we went to the explanation part. It's already saying it here, it's wrong because we haven't created. It's point to null before you doing it circle array dot and you call constructor. Okay. Here they explain it again. So the circle object have to be instead using of constructor of the circle classes. So how are you going to do this? Either you go at one by one, or the easiest way you can use loop. So you go over the array from the beginning until the end. So starting from 0 until the length. the array, how we can know the length of the array, we use the method length. Is going to give us a length of the array. And then we call it one by one, and then creating a new circle for the first place, for index 0, index 1, and so on. After that, you can invoke the methods. So you put the object, so this is going to refer as an object. We don't have name for it. So it's called circle index 0, circle index 1. That means this is an object, object 0, object 1, object 9, dot, and then you invoked the methods that's on the class. Okay? Here is going to talk about some aspects on Java. Abstraction or encapsulation. Abstraction means separate the class implementation from the use of the class. So you don't have a really communication between the use and implementation. You don't have to make this details. To create a class providing description of a class and let the user know how the class can be used. The user of the class doesn't know. This is the other concept. When we said the user doesn't know how the class is implemented. Now, if you're buying a new software, do you know what's happening inside it? No, you don't know about the details unless it's an open source and they send it with it. But usually you don't. And this is what is called encapsulation. Okay. So what's encapsulation? That's the user have no idea what's behind the program. They don't know about the implementations and so on. Object-oriented thinking. كيف احنا نفكر as thinking? I believe in the first class I already explained this. So let's assume you're having you write a program with the lines after lines. This program, for example, for course registration for university systems, university course management systems. If another university asks you to create similar, it is hard to reuse the same applications you already developed before. Why? Because each line is related to the lines before it and so on. However, in an object-oriented, you create a class for a course, and a class for students, and a class for teachers, for example, or tutors. You can reuse those objects and just change some functionalities or requirements for the new university. So this is what they mean. In the main methods, when you're putting the lines, it's hard to be used, couldn't be reused, because it's line after a line and it's all related to each other. However, when you're having an object, so you create an object for students, object for class, object for teachers, you can reuse this object whenever you just need to change a little bit. يعني أنت لو تكتب الكود راح يكون lines بشكل تتابعي، راح يكون من الصعب تغييرها. لكن حنا لو عملناها كأوبجكت راح تكون كمقاطع مفصولة. فمتى ما حبينا ان احنا نغير الديتيلز اللي حق الابلكيشنز او نعمل same application, similar applications to another customer, for example, you can reuse whatever you built before. So this is another example here. How you defining the class and creating the object. Remember, this is the name of the class. You having the data here, and you having the methods here. You need to remember how you learn how to read the methods. يعني, for example, the data هنا, the channels, the name of the data. Then we have عندنا هذه النقطتين الرئيسيتين. That means it's gonna from the type integer. الvolume level is going to be type integer. On going to be type boolean. Methods TV, this is the constructors. The turn on methods, what is going to return? So after the two dots, it's going to return void. Here, if it's going to have any argument inside, it's going to be inside. Like you set the channels, you having new channels is the name, and what's the type is integer. So this is the argument which is going to get n, and what is going to return is going to return void. الفكرة من هذا البرنامج اللي راح نشوفها ان هم عاملين كلاس اسمه TV، راح يكون فيها الشانلز والقنوات والصوت، وهل هو on or off، وبعد كذا راح نعمل بعض الميثودز فقط ميثودز تعريفية. المثال جدا قريب الى اللاب اللي عملناه الاسبوع اللي طاف. يعني هنا فقط راح نعمل انك تعمل set الى الشانلز وست الى الفوليوم. فور اكزامبل راح نرفع ونقلل، يعني نقلل او نزيد القناة، ونقلل او نزيد الصوت. That's it. So this is the idea of it. What we need to remember that we having class TV, we having three variables, three datas, and we having a set for channel volume. We having two methods to get the channels up and down, two methods to get the volume up and down. We have some constraints here. For example, a channel is going to go from 0 to 120, the volumes from 1 to 7, and the on is mean on and off. Okay. So this is how we can present it. We having usually في أغلب الأمثلة اللي راح نشوفها both during the class أو باللاب, you will have two classes. Usually you can have more, but for now we will have two. One of the class we usually call it test something. That we did test circle, test TV, test whatever, and it has the main methods inside it, which is what's really the compiler will see. ويكون عندنا class ثاني, we will have another class which is we're gonna to create an object from it. In a real life you will have more than this, but now we will have, most likely we will have two. So the class TV, it has the data here, it has one constructors, it has couples of methods. So what we're going to do, first we're going to create an object called TV1. In this TV1, the default, whenever you create it, is going to call this constructor. Inside this constructor, we don't have the code here. You can click on the green and you see the full code of it, which is going to assign the default values. So the channels will be 1, the volume level is going to be 1, and the on is going to be false. Good? So whenever you create it, it's going to call the default values. What's next? Then we will say this is supposed to be here. TV1, so we invoked it for this object TV1 that turn on. What turn on methods do is change the on from false to true. So this is what just happened. Next, you see what has happened? We called TV1, which is the object, set the channels, and we passed 30 here. It is going to change it to 30. If I would like to change the volume, I would say TV dot volume. Where is the volume here? Set the volume. So now we're going to invoke this method. So TV dot set volume with a 3. This is gonna to change the volume with a 3 here. Okay. Any question about this example? Any question about the TV test example? Good. So this is what I just explained. I just put it there for you as a visualize, and here you having the full code. So you having the data, you have the constructors, then you having each methods, it turn on, it turn off, and then setting channels. Here, and you need to take a look here. Set the channels. So whenever you send it, you don't assign it right away. You double check if the TV is on, how you can change it, the channel if it's off. And if the channel is bigger than or equal to 1, and it's less than or equal to 120. We already saw this condition in the previous slide. You remember here? It's from 1 until 120. The same things with the volume. You cannot change the volume, it's off. So we put the condition, الشرط هنا, we need to make sure it's on. What does that on mean? On is the on variable. What does that mean? That on is true. I will get inside if this on is true and the new volume is bigger than 1 and it's less than or equal 7. The volume up and down, it's straightforward. You just get it minus minus. As long as it's bigger than 1, you get it up as long as it's less than 7. You can see the full code if you click on those green squares here. I highly recommend you guys to try to take a look to it and test it. So this is the code. So this is the test TV, the main. So this is the one we explain it. You creating object TV1. You turn it on. Then we change the channel. We change the volume. This is we didn't do it. It's similar to it. So we creating another object TV1. We turn it on. So we invoked it. We're using the name of the object 2. We channel it up again, we're changing the volumes, and then we print the result. Now we will enter to a new topic, which is talk about how we use what is called array lists. We talked about a list for a long time. We're creating different type of lists, integer, double, string, object, array of objects, and so on. But for those who remember, I'll ask you a couple of things and you need to tell me if that's right or wrong. So an array has fixed size, okay? We know that. You cannot change the size of an array. Can you change the contents of the array? Yes or no? Quickly. Good. Now stop. We'll ask you about the string. Can we change the size of the string? The string size, can we change it? No, we cannot change a string length. Exactly. Can we change the content of the string? No, we cannot change the content of the string. You need to back to the previous lesson. السترينج ما تقدر تغير لا محتوياته ولا تقدر تغير طوله. الاري ما تقدر تغير طولها لكن تقدر تغير محتوياتها. So if we back to the string to solve the problems, and here we cannot change the length and we cannot change the content. السولوشن حقها في string, what did we use? If you remember, string you cannot change the length and you cannot change the contents. What did we use for this? Yes, length is not changing. Exactly. Thank you. The string builder, string buffer. Thank you, both of you. So من الحلول إن السترينج ما تقدر لا تغير الطول ولا تقدر تغير المحتويات. كانت السولوشن حقها نستخدم السترينج بيلدر أو سترينج بافر. Same things الآن مع الارray list. Exactly. On the array, you can change the contents, but you cannot change the length. So the solution حقها, how we can fix this? We use the array list. The array has fixed size, but the array list has a limited number of objects. So you can change it whenever you need to add more. Okay? So the array list is indexable order collection. So it's going to have an index. It's exactly like an array. But the things that you can add size whenever you need more. Order collection means each element in a collection has well-defined place. So you can back to it by using an index. إيش هي similarity between the array list and the array? What's the similarity? Both can store a number of references, either primitives or references. Data can be accessed via an index. You can access what they have inside it from an index. The elements duplication is allowed, so you can put the same value on a different location. It's fine. How is going to be different? The array list has no fixed size. Okay? The array list object requests more space. هذه drawback حقها، هذه مشكلة بالنسبة إلى array list إن هي راح تتطلب more space. And sometimes the Java runtime system, if it's necessary, so it's required more space. If you don't manage it well, you will use more of the memory. So that's why it's not ideal in its use of memory. Because some people, for example, they may reserve thousands of elements or space, and then they used only few of it. No, it's not problem for performance. It could be. هي المشكلة في الميموري. So أنت لو جيت عملت new array list وحجزت 1000 مكان وبعد كده استخدمت only 5, that means you're wasting the memory. However, في الarray, whenever you decide to put a size, you cannot go over it. Okay. So this is, the size will be often be less than the capacity. So here, remember again, من الأشياء we talked about it on the string builder, there is a difference between the size and the capacity. إيش هي the difference between the size and capacity? Okay, I'll tell you in the sentence and you need to tell me if it's capacity or size. Let me see the question. So, the builder problem for performance, no, as I just explained, المشكلة في memory. So the app will be heavy. Okay. I don't get what you mean only when it comes to string. I don't get your question, sorry. So, which one, size or capacity, is gonna to represent the actual data? So, if you're having array list and we reserved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until, which is going to be until 4, and we having 3, 2, 1. So capacity, how much is the capacity? Is the actual. The capacity is gonna the size is gonna to be actual. الحقيقة اللي موجودة. So the size is going to be here 3. The capacity how much? 5. We're starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we having the capacity is 5. Qadir, you just trying to mix up string builder مع الارray. احنا قلنا في تشابه ان string builder انوجدت على اساس تحل مشكله العدد المحدود وعدم القدره على تغيير الكونتنت في السترينج، ولكن هي مش نفسها الارray list. 16 بلس 3 هذا الكلام يرجع الى string builder، ليس في الارray. في الارray we don't have this 16 here at all. It's starting exactly like what you have. Okay. So for string builder we starting to have it from 16 the default capacity, but for the array list we don't have default capacity. So the capacity is the maximum number, the size is the current number that's already stored. Okay. Now we're having we're going to talk about the array list as a class. The class اللي حق array list, if you would like to use any of those methods, يعني أنت حابب تستخدم array list, you have to call this library import. Okay, and those are some of the functions. So هنا when you this is the constructor لإنشائها. Here if you would like to add a specific, this is any type, add a new element in the list. You can add an element. This is you just add it at the end. Add at the end. If you defined an index, here is going to define exactly what it's supposed to add. A clear is going to remove everything. Contains, this method is going to check. You put an object. For example, if you're having a list of students, you put the name of students. For example, Fatimah, Alsayoud is going to say if it contains on the list or not. It's going to return Boolean, true or false. Get is going to return what's the object on that index. The index of is going to return integer, whereas that object. So if I'm looking for students, I would like to know where it is. It's going to return an index. Is empty is going to return if it has volume items or not. Last index of آخر مكان موجود فيها هذه الobject if it has more than one time. Remove is going to delete an object, specific object. A size is going to return a size. Here is going to remove a specific object by index. So in this case, this is going to you're going to give an object, which objects you would like to remove. In this case, you would like to tell in which location you would like to remove. Okay. Yes, mean generic, you're right. Set, you get to put a new value in this index. And this is interesting. I'll show you now in an example. Remember this, okay? I'll ask you and I'll see who's going to remember this. What's the difference between an add and a set? What's the difference between an add and a set? Let me see if you can guess, guys. Add and a set. In the first add, you add it at the end. In this add, you add it in a specific place. A set, you're going to put it in a specific place as well. Yes, it's going to insert. What's the difference between an add, this add, specifically? Let me just erase the whole things. I need you to tell me what's the difference between this and this. Okay, set change items. What about add, Isa? Add store it at last. No, the other add. I'm talking about the other add, which is specific index. Both of them have a specific index. No, it's not. The first one here, this is added at the end, but this is added in a specific place, and this is set in a specific place. No, Yazid, it's not about return. But the add will add, okay, both of them, okay, what do you mean about add is going to add? I need to be more clear. Okay, you're right about return here. Okay, you're right about return. This is going to return nothing, and this is going to return a specific type. But this is what not what I'm asking for. I ask about ايش هي الفرق في العمليات اللي راح تعملها. Not about the return. I see your points, guys. Add means there's a new content, but set changes only. Bushra, you almost there. Okay, let's see it on the example. Okay. خلينا نكمل and then you will see it in the example, okay? Most of you it's trying you almost in the right track, I mean. بس لسه ما وضحتوها 100%. راح نشوفها soon. خلينا نكمل على السلايد. So ArrayList is known as a generic class. ايش معناها هذه؟ ان هنا لما نوضع الاي معناها this is can be string, can be an integers, can be double and so on. Okay, you can specify a created type to place الاي. لكن هنا راح نتذكر ايش راح نوجد فيها. ArrayList object can be used to store string. We read it as ArrayList of string. So if you having ArrayList of integer, you will say ArrayList of integer, ArrayList of object, ArrayList of double, and so on and so forth. For example, here you put ArrayList, then inside brackets you put string. This is a name. And then you put new ArrayList, string again. You can specify capacity or you can just leave it empty. Again, please go home and try the code. So how we can declare it? I just explained in the previous one. You put ArrayList and then you put a type, a name, and then either you specify capacity or not. There is something we already talked about it in the previous class. What you need to put inside it here, it has to be Warburg classes. Can I say, for example, ArrayList int, like this? Is this right? Right or wrong? Can I say ArrayList int? Those who are saying no, you have to tell me then what I'm supposed to put inside here if I'm going to create ArrayList of integer. What I'm going to put instead of object type if I'm not allowed to put int. Good, integer. Why are we supposed to put integer? Because we are not supposed to use primitive type. We're supposed to use the Warburg class. So for integer, we use integer. We don't use, for example, for double, the small one, double, and so on. I'll remind you then later. I'll show you the table. We saw it on the meeting 3 for a Warburg class, okay? So example here, you having integer, ArrayList integer, and then a name, new ArrayList, and then you write integer again. This is declare ArrayList to specify that will hold integer references. Integer what? References. Integer references. So an integer here is not a primitive. It's a references. If it's double, it's going to be references. Whatever type it's Warburg class is going to be references. Okay, you can put any other object type. This declaration sets up an empty array list. When you're just doing this line, you don't have any object inside it. But it's gonna just to create an empty array list. The array list capacity is expanded automatically as is needed. You don't have to expand it every time. It's going to be expanded automatically. So this is the other example. So see here is double is D is capital. It's not like the primitive double, which is having a small d. You remember Java is a key sensitive, حساس إلى الأحرف. What's mean is key sensitive. يعني لو كتبنا على أساس إن إحنا نعرف الprimitive double as capital is going to be wrong. If we're using it here as a small, it is going to be wrong because it's a key sensitive. حساس إلى الأحرف إذا كانت capital or small. Okay. So here we create an array list من نوع الدبل. Yes, it's going to expand it. It's going to be added at the end when you're using add method. So السايز اللي حقها is going to be 100. There is another method to expand the capacity more, but this is not including in your lecture, so I'm not going to bothering you talking about it. But this is just what's add expanded at the end of the array list. Okay. So now we will do an exercise that is going to make sure you understand what we just talking about, okay? Stop sharing. So this is what I'm talking about. That's just the screen show. Okay, good. So this is the slide. We already had it before. That explained to you what's the Warburg class mean. So it's in meeting 2. It's not in meeting 3. A Warburg class integer is going to be integer like this, a longer, short, byte, boolean, double, and the float as well. Okay. So this is what you're going to use with the array list, not those one. Okay. So this one on the object Warburg class. So now we will see the example. Okay. Let's do it fast because we still have some other exercise as well. So what I'm supposing to put here, I'm creating first in this exercise. This is the main slide is in 25 in your original slide. So we're creating a list to store a city is called city list. So اسمها city list. So we're having an array list. إيش نوعها? What is the type? It is a string. Thank you. And then we create just this array. So we're having city list, and then we creating this array list here. It's from array list is type 0. Then if you would like to add the cities one by one, we will add an add. But before the add, what I'm going to put here, which object's going to invoke the add? الadd is a method الخاصة بإيش؟ اللي خاصة بالarray list. But I have a specific object خاصة فيها حنا لسه عملناها array اسمها city list. So what we get to have here, we call it city list that add, and then we will add London, Denver, Paris, and so on. Okay. This is the rest of the exercise. خلينا نشوفه. The third requirement to print out a list contents. اللي يميز الarray list, which is different than an array, you don't have to use a loop to print all the contents of an array list. You could, which is one of the way to print all contents على أساس إن نطبع محتويات الارray list. You could use a loop, but it's give you an easy, simple option. You can just put it in name, and then you will get a list. So the output of this is going to be brackets, and it's going to be London, Danforth, and so on until the end. Then 4 and 6 print the size of the city list. How we can print the size? Print the size, the city list, sorry, dot size is going to give us a size. How much is going to be size? What's the output of this line? What is the array, the city list size? Okay, 6. Good. Then we will call a method called contains. I already told you this. When we having an object, which is a city list, that contains, we call this methods, and we put Miami. What's the return of the contains methods? The return is going to be, what is going to return? Good, true. So return المethod contains is going to be true or false. So it contains Miami, yes, it's true. So it's going to return true. Third sentence, system, the location of Danforth list. فين مكانها في Danforth? You put list, city list, that index of أوجد لي مكان, where is Danforth? So what is the return for this one? 1. Good job. Okay, we're not going to do those now. I'll tell you later why. Okay, so this is the output of those print statements. So first, London, this one here, a list is size 6. You are right, guys. True. And then Danforth, this will be an index 1. Okay. الآن راح نرجع إلى نقطة الadd والset والremove. You need to remember this, guys, okay? It is going to, it's different than an array. The array list on the add and remove is different than an array. So here, if we say city list dot at 4, before at 4, what do we have? At 4, we have Seoul, okay? At 4. No, at 4, we don't have Miami. We have Seoul. Now, if we would like to add Paris at 4, we don't remove Seoul and put Paris inside it. No, we shift it down, okay? We shift Seoul down, and then we added Paris at 4. We don't remove the previous one. We don't write on top of it. We remove it down, and then we add. This is add at 4. If you print this out, you don't have it in the example. I added myself. So if you put it to print city list, you will see the list. We didn't remove the Seoul. We're having Paris and Seoul, so it's just shifted down. Now let's see what you're going to do if you have a remove. So if I said remove Paris, in the previous example, you see how many Paris we have? 1, 2. The first one on the index 2, and the second one on the index 4. I say remove Paris is going to go to the first one on 2 and remove it and shift whatever down on top. Okay, راح يرفع كل اللي موجودين، راح يمسح الباريس ويرفع اللي موجودين يوضعهم مكانها. فمن مسبقا كانت ميامي, it was on index 3. So when we removed Paris, We get Miami up to. Okay, and then we removed only the first Paris, not the second one. Good. We didn't change the size here, Hamad. The array list cannot be changed. We didn't said that the size cannot be changed. The size you can change it. We are not talking about the size at all here. We're just talking about the location, the index. Okay? So we're just talking about the index. فين مكان القيم اللي حقها. Okay? Now, if I tell you, instead of add, what if I said, for example, city list dot set. We don't have this as an example. Let's assume we're having set at, for example, let's say 0. Let's put Toronto. Okay. What is this going to do? I'll go to 0. I'm not going to add it. I'm going to go to 0 and remove London. Let me choose another color. And I remove London, and inside it, or actually it's a pointer because it's a string. String never changed, but the pointer will point to Toronto instead of London. Okay? So this is what set's going to do. الآن is going to shift them down. ما راح تلقي شيء. ما راح تعمل update. The set is going to update what is on the index. الآن is going to add insert. الآن is going to insert new items. The set is going to update. Okay? So far so good. Let's just back to our slides. Okay, so this is the example. هذه هي كلها الأمثلة اللي we just explained it in the on the exercise. So we having a print, how you get to print it. So here they ask if you would like to print it, or I mean they discuss if you would like to print it. There is 3 different ways. Either you use a simple way as we saw it in the example. Either you're using a loop as what we used to do on an array. But you remember here. In the array, we're using the brackets for I, but for the array list, you use .get. You're using the get methods to get the information at specific location, specific index. A third type, having, I believe maybe some of you haven't seen it before, or maybe I don't know, what is called for each string, or for each, it could be for each integer, for each double. That means هنا إلى كل string X موجود في الcity list. يعني اذهب لي إلى الcity list وابدأ اقرأ لي item by item, and each item store it as a string on X. So I have X here, and I said go to the city list. Bring the first one and store it here and process it, print it, do calculation, whatever. And then go back. As long as you have an items in city list, go to the next one and then store it on X and do the processing and using the lists. It could be the X, it could be integer, it could be double, it could be an object. فهذه هي الفكرة من for each. For each, that means go to each element on that array list. Belong to the list. X will hold the value itself, not the index. So the value of here is, for example, Fatima. It is going to be here the same things. Okay. So it's going to be hold the value, not the index each time. And then it could be print statement. This is simple things. But sometimes later you will do some calculation and so on and so forth. Okay. So an exercise here, you can create a list to store 2 circles. So 2 circles, that means 2 objects from type class circle and then add dots to circle, display the first one as a list. So we're creating array list. The type is going to be circle من نوع الكلاس circle, and then what's the name of this array list is C1, and then we created using the traditional declaration statement. Here we add at this array list, add a new circle, so we calling it the constructor. At the first here we didn't create, do you remember, as exactly the first example that I show you? This is just gonna to create an array, but this is gonna to create references to an object and call the declaration new circle and assign 5. This is going to assign 2. After that, you will invoke till get methods for, this is going to be for the array list, not for the object. So we having the first object here, if you would like to get it, how we can access, this is on location 0, 1, 2. So this, does it mean that we are talking about this location? Does get radius, that means go to inside it here, you having the methods get radius and call it. Okay? So this part is going to tell you which location. C1 or C all here, dot get 0, that means it's like when we having an array, if you remember, we having an array called x, and we say x0. This is exactly same things. After that, this is mean you are accessing the object here now. After you accessing the object here, you're gonna to go and call those methods. You get a radius and get an array, an area. Okay. Now we need to see, this is an important and interesting differentiation between الارray and الارray list. لما تفهموها راح يكون لك اسهل على اساس انكم تذكروا الفانكشنالز عفوا الميثودز اللي حق الارray list and how it's different than الarray. So لما نعمل creation للarray we set string and then square a. And we create like this. However, in array list, we put the array list string and we declare it like this. How we can access a specific element on the array, we set A and then we put an index. Okay? A list dot get is going to access a specific location, an index. So this is exactly like this. If you would like to assign, if you would like to update, you remember here? On the array, if you say A index equal to London, is going to update what is already, it's going to be update what's already on that location. It's not going to add it. How we can update it? Using set. You see here? They said set, they didn't use add. How we can know a length? You put a length. It's exactly the same as when you call it a size. Here are some additional methods. So this is things that are not available on array. هذه methods مش available في الarray مثل الإضافة at the end تضيف at the end. الإضافة بالمنتصف هذه راح تضيف بالمنتصف ما راح تعمل update مثل ما عملنا هنا. هذه راح تعمل update مثل الست. هنا راح تضيف بالمنتصف insert not update. remove by a specific index, remove by a specific object. عمل لي clear, all those functions are not available on the array. It's just available on array list. Okay. So in some cases, خلينا نفترض ان in some cases you having an array and you would like to change it to array list, or the opposite. You have array list and you would like to change it to array. يعني مثلا انت عملت array الى you think you just have you get to have 20 students on this class. And at some point, you figure it out that you need to add more students. So we'd like to move it to ArrayList. How we can do this? It is possible. So it's also possible to create an equivalent list from ArrayList using static methods arrays, AsList, array. So this is under class array. So if you get to use this, you're supposed to call import java.utility.arrays, not ArrayList. This is under arrays class. As list, and then you put the array name inside it. So this is if you get it to transfer an array to ArrayList. What if you would like to do the opposite? So you're having an array. Sorry, this is the other way to do it. You're having ArrayList, and then this is the name you created normally, but here instead of putting capacity, you put arrays, you call a class array, dot as a list, which is the methods, and you put your array name. Now you're having a list contains the red, the green, and the blue. Yes, you're changing the array to array. Ethan. Okay, if you would like to do the opposite, how you can changing an array list to array, you put the list name, array list, dot to array, and then you put array name. So it's going to change it, create an array object from an array list. So you're having an array list, which is list. This is the array list. And then you would like to create an array. This is an array. So you said list dot to array, and then you put some array list here. There is a class called collections, utilities class. Yes, you have to import it as well. You have to import the array, and then the other way you have to import the array list. Now we'll talk about the collection utilities class. ايش هي فكرة هالcollections؟ ان هي راح تتعامل مع المجموعات، راح توفر لنا بعض الميثودز that is going to help us doing some important functionalities, such as what? Sorting, shuffling, picking large and small items, and so on. It is not also, it's not only about the array, it's about any other collection. It can work with other type of collection. The collection class راح نشوفها بعد شوية. Inside it's couple of methods. The sorting, the shuffling, the maximum, the minimum. It is going to help us doing some functionality easier. One of the type of objects that is going to go is using an array list. You need to import the utilities if you would like to use a collection. So one of the example, you can use reversing. if you having a city list مثلا عندنا قائمة حابين ان احنا نقلبها reverse it. What we can do, we just import the collection, then we call the collection class that we invoked a reverse methods. Inside it we put the name اللي حق الليست. فهي هذا الكولكشن راح توفر لنا مجموعة من الميثودز يسهلون العمليات. Anyone remember, for string we having this reverse as well, and we already use it on the lab. So we having for a build string, we having reversed methods as well. Okay, was get to reverse the string. So we reversed, if we having collection that reversed city list is going to reverse it. Sorting راح ترتبها is going to sort. So we having a collection, we import a method sort, we put the array list, and it's going to sort it. The other two useful methods اللي هي الماكسيموم والمينيموم. So we can find the maximum and minimum inside the array list, okay? راح يرجعون لك actual maximum and minimum, not their position. يعني if you would like, if we're gonna choose the collection that's the max, the collection that's the minimum, is gonna to return the actual value. It's not the location, it's not the index. And there's an important point. الcontent محتويات الارray list must have a definition of ordering. ايش معنى هذا؟ يعني الordering either مثلا if it's number, the ordering is going to go from 0 to 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. If it's alphabetical, it's going to be go from A, B, C, D and so on. But it's not going to order it in a specific way if you would like to, I don't know, you have your own order. So a sort either is going to be numbers or by alphabet. Okay. So here's an example for the maximum or minimum. So if we define an array called array, which type integer, and it has those numbers. And now we're using converting. We're going to convert it to array list. So we're having an array list from type integer. References integer is called all1. We need a new array integer, and then we call an arrays class with the method as list. راح نحولها إلى list. إيش هي الarray اللي لسه عرفناها قبل شوية هنا. This is gonna to return it as a list. So it's gonna to try to figure it out. إيش هي maximum on the all1? What is the maximum? It's 10. إيش هي minimum? What's the minimum? Is 3. Okay. The other function is shuffling. إيش معنات shuffling؟ يعني إنك تغير الأوردر حقهم بطريقة راندوم. يعني مثل ما نقول إن يعني we mix it up. Okay. The elements in the list can be put into a random order by passing the list as an argument shuffle. Let's see this example. So we're creating an array, call an array, and we're having these numbers. And then we're creating a list called list. We changing the array into an array list. And then we do some shuffling. Okay. We will see the outputs on the examples here. And then we will see how it's going to shuffle. It's just going to change the order of the elements on this array list. And at the end, we will see this exercise. This is the end of it. So let's go to our extra slides to see the example. So you remember, I told you in the slide we have it written just as a word. I just prefer to put it on the code so you see it on actual how it's going to work. Okay. So let's see it. First, we need to import array list with array with collection. I'll tell you why for each of those. The first requirement for this exercise, they ask us to create an array of integer with a value 90, 70, 80, and so on. So we're creating an array of type integer. Good? This is the first requirement. What's the second requirement? Is create an integer list, name it list1, to have the same volume as integer array. So what we're going to use? We're going to use array as list. If you're using this sentence without importing the array, you will get an error. So for this one, you have to import the array, okay? The third requirement, they ask us to print the list1. As we said, it's very simple with the array list. Just to print and you put it down. Then they ask us to print a reverse order. So what we have here, we have 90, 70, 88. So we're going to get a reversed. We'll see the output. The fifth requirement is to print out the maximum and the minimum. How we can collect the maximum and the minimum? We need the collection. Now, if we didn't import the collection here, we're going to get an error. When using the collection, that's the maximum, and then we put the array list inside it. The collection, that's the minimum, we put the array list inside it. This is going to return the maximum, this is going to return the minimum. The sixth requirement is print out the summations of list 1. So we will start from, we will initialize the list as a 0. We'll go into it one by one and see here for each on the list, but here is going to be integer. On the example, previous example was string. So it's going to save it as y. So we will collect sum. So usually if you are going to do average, sum, count, always remember to initialize it with 0. So first is going to be 0. So 0 plus y. And then it is going to go to the next one. Remember, this is going to go here. We are not going to go to print until the end, because see, it's in the same level and we don't have brackets as well. Then it's going to read the next one, the next number, I believe maybe 88, and then it's going to add it to the whatever we're having on S, and so on until the end of the list 1. Okay. After finishing this loop, we going to print the sum. Okay. The seventh requirement, they ask us to rearrange it in a random order. Which function do we have it to do the random order? Is a shuffle. So if we put in a collection, that's a shuffle, the argument inside it is going to be list 1. This is going to making is going to mix out elements inside it. So this is the whole code with the whole requirements. Oh, I don't have the output here. Okay, so let me just bring the output for you guys for this example. Until then, anyone have any questions? So this is the end of our today's lecture. I'll just bring the output of the last example. But meanwhile, let me see if any of you have any question. Okay, good. So it's just going to print a list as it is. Then when we do reversed the second time, it is just going to switch. We start with a 90 and end with a 93. We will start with a 93 and end with a 90. When we're trying to find the maximum is 94 and the minimum is 66. Okay. Then we will try to figure out what is the sum. So the sum of it is going to be 501. And last things is shuffling. So it's just shuffling them randomly. If we run it again, we might get different results here. You remember 66, 90, 94, 88. Okay, so starting with 66. You see? We get a different result. So what's making shuffles different? So every time you run it, you will get different results. Okay? So this is the end of the lecture. خلصنا الليكتشر والاكسرسايز. خليني انزل الاتندنس. Okay, I get the attendance. If you would like to leave, you can do so.